Good evening, everyone. Before you decide to end your relationship, I want to invite you to pause, not to hesitate out of fear, but to reflect with awareness. So many people believe that when love begins to fade, the relationship is over. But love rarely disappears overnight. It erodes through misunderstanding, silence, and emotional distance. Ending a relationship is not just about leaving another person. It's about closing a chapter of your own story. And before you turn that page, it's worth asking, what part of me am I trying to leave behind? Because sometimes what we call the end of a relationship is really the beginning of self-awareness. We often leave relationships not because love is gone, but because we no longer recognize ourselves in them. There comes a moment when you look at your partner and instead of warmth, you feel a quiet confusion. Who am I when I'm with you now? You start noticing that the laughter has become rarer, that conversations feel more like negotiations, and that the space between you, once electric with possibility, now feels heavy with routine. It's easy to assume that this means the relationship has run its course. But what if it's not love that's vanished? What if it's you who's become lost in the story? In the beginning, relationships are mirrors that reflect our best selves. We see ourselves as interesting, alive, desirable, creative. Over time, as life's demands grow louder, children, work, finances, disappointments, that mirror starts to fog. We begin to see only the flaws, the hurts, the unmet needs. We start to believe that our unhappiness lives inside the other person. You don't make me feel loved. You don't understand me? You're different now. But sometimes what we're really saying is, I don't recognize the person I've become. Many people end relationships searching for freedom, but what they really want is aliveness. They want to feel again what they once felt, not just toward their partner, but within themselves. Ending the relationship can seem like the easiest way to reclaim that spark. But here's the truth: if you've lost connection with your own vitality, ending the relationship won't automatically bring it back. Because wherever you go, you take yourself with you. This doesn't mean you should stay in situations that are harmful, disrespectful, or emotionally barren. But before you leave, it's worth asking, what part of me has gone quiet here? Have I stopped being curious? Have I replaced wonder with certainty? Have I been protecting myself from pain by withdrawing from closeness? Sometimes we stop showing up long before we actually leave. The tragedy of many endings is that they happen not because love has died, but because two people forgot how to see each other and themselves beyond the roles they've built. You might be leaving a relationship that has become too small for your growth. But if you don't understand what part of yourself you've abandoned, you risk repeating the same pattern with someone new. So before you decide to walk away, take one honest look inward, not to assign blame, but to understand. Because maybe the question isn't, do I still love them? But rather, can I still find myself here? And that reflection can sometimes lead not to an ending, but to a beginning, one built not on escape, but on awareness. Conflict doesn't always mean disconnection. Sometimes it's an invitation to grow. When two people love each other deeply, it's easy to believe that harmony should come naturally. That if you've chosen the right partner, things should simply flow. But real intimacy is not a smooth road, it's a living process full of friction, movement, and repair. Conflict isn't the opposite of love. In fact, it's often a sign that two people still care enough to fight for something that matters. The danger isn't in the arguments themselves. It's in the silence that replaces them when two hearts stop reaching out, even in disagreement. Conflict is a mirror. It doesn't just reveal who your partner is. It reveals who you are when you feel unseen, unheard, or unsafe. It shows the parts of you that crave validation, that fear rejection, that long to be understood. When we argue, we're rarely fighting about the thing on the surface, the dishes, the tone, the timing. We're fighting for connection. We're saying, do you see me? Do you still care enough to understand what this means to me? Many people see conflict as a threat to love, but it can also be an expression of love. To care enough to express anger or disappointment means you still want to be met emotionally. The absence of conflict isn't peace, it's distance. When couples stop arguing altogether, It often means they've stopped trying to reach each other. They've built walls instead of bridges, silence instead of dialogue. Of course, not all conflict is healthy. Repetitive blame, humiliation, or emotional cruelty destroy trust. But disagreement, when expressed with honesty and respect, can deepen intimacy. It invites both partners to grow beyond their comfort zones. It says, let's learn how to see the world through each other's eyes, even if we don't agree. Conflict handled with awareness becomes communication. Communication handled with compassion becomes connection. The question is not, how can we stop fighting? But, what is this fight really about? Beneath every argument lies an unmet need, a longing for attention, respect, closeness, or safety. When you start listening for the need rather than defending against the words, everything changes. You move from reacting to understanding. Growth in a relationship doesn't come from pretending everything is fine. It comes from having the courage to stay engaged when things are hard. Every time you choose to listen instead of defend, to pause instead of attack, to soften instead of retreat, you expand the space between you. That space is where love breathes again. So before deciding that conflict means it's over, ask what it's trying to teach you. Maybe the discomfort you feel isn't a sign of a relationship failing, but the sound of two souls learning how to love more consciously. Because love isn't the absence of struggle, it's the ability to grow through it together. Emotional distance is rarely about indifference. It's often about unspoken pain. When love begins to feel distant, when your partner seems quiet, distracted, or detached, it's easy to interpret that silence as a lack of care. You start to think they don't love me anymore. But emotional distance isn't always about disinterest. More often, it's about protection. It's the way people guard the parts of themselves that have been hurt, disappointed, or unseen. What looks like coldness is often a shield around tenderness. In most relationships, emotional withdrawal doesn't start with a single moment. It builds quietly, almost invisibly. One small hurt goes unspoken. A need is dismissed. A feeling is minimized. Over time, these moments gather like dust until one day, you realize there's a fog between you that wasn't there before. It's not that love disappeared. It's that pain was never named. And when pain isn't acknowledged, it doesn't vanish. It buries itself deeper until the only way to feel safe is to step back. People often say, I feel like my partner has changed. But usually what has changed is the way they cope. When emotional connection feels risky, when honesty leads to conflict or dismissal, distance begins to feel like safety. One person withdraws to avoid more hurt. The other feels abandoned and responds with anger or desperation. Both suffer, yet both are protecting themselves in the only way they know how. To heal emotional distance, you have to be willing to look beneath the silence. You have to ask gently, what pain have we stopped talking about? What truth have we been afraid to face? Sometimes the person who seems farthest away is the one who still feels the most. They just don't know how to show it anymore. Beneath the quiet may live grief, shame, resentment, or fear. But until it's spoken, it remains an invisible barrier to closeness. Reconnection begins not with demands, but with safety, with presence, with curiosity instead of accusation. When someone feels truly safe to express themselves, when they know they won't be attacked, corrected, or dismissed, their walls start to soften. They begin to risk showing you what's really underneath the distance. And that's when emotional intimacy returns. It takes courage to lean into that silence. It's easier to fill the space with blame or to mirror the withdrawal by pulling away yourself. But love asks for something harder. To stay open when you most want to close. To say, I miss you, instead of, you never care. To ask, are you hurting? Instead of, why are you so cold? These are small shifts, but they transform disconnection into dialogue. Emotional distance doesn't always signal the end of love. Sometimes it's love asking for a different kind of attention. It's saying, see me beneath the silence. Hear the pain I don't know how to name. And when you can do that, when you can meet the distance with compassion instead of fear, what once felt like the end can become the beginning of a deeper, more honest connection. One of the great paradoxes of long-term love is that the same person who brings us the most joy can also awaken our deepest frustration. We long for closeness, and at the same time, we resist it. We crave connection, but fear losing ourselves inside it. Desire and resentment often live side by side, and understanding this tension is essential if you want your relationship to survive and grow. In the early stages of love, desire feels effortless. You're drawn to your partner with curiosity and excitement. You want to know everything about them. But over time, familiarity replaces mystery. The same qualities that once attracted you can begin to irritate you. Their confidence starts to feel like arrogance. Their calmness feels like distance. The very person who once made you feel alive now triggers impatience or even anger. This doesn't mean the relationship is broken. It means it's evolving. Resentment often grows where desire once lived because relationships are made of constant negotiations. Between freedom and togetherness, between self and us, between what we give and what we withhold. When these negotiations feel unfair or unspoken, resentment starts to take root. We feel unseen, unappreciated, or trapped, and the natural instinct is to pull away. But that same withdrawal that protects us from pain also suffocates desire. Love begins to feel like duty instead of choice. Desire thrives in space. It needs room to breathe, to imagine, to long. Yet many couples, in their search for security, accidentally erase the very distance that keeps attraction alive. They mistake fusion for intimacy. They become so intertwined that there's no longer enough air between them for mystery, curiosity, or anticipation to grow. When that happens, desire fades, and resentment quietly takes its place. The solution isn't to choose one over the other. It's to recognize that desire and resentment are both natural parts of love's rhythm. You can feel anger toward your partner and still love them deeply. You can long for connection while craving independence. These contradictions don't mean something is wrong. They mean you're human. The goal isn't to eliminate tension, but to navigate it consciously. When resentment builds, it's often a sign that a boundary has been crossed or a need has gone unspoken. Instead of letting that resentment harden into emotional distance, try to express it with honesty and vulnerability. I feel unseen. I feel taken for granted. I miss the way we used to touch. These are not accusations. They're invitations. They open the door for repair, for rediscovery. And when you allow space, emotional, physical, psychological, desire often returns. Because attraction lives not in certainty, but in curiosity. It's not about needing the other person. It's about choosing them again and again from a place of freedom. Understanding that love can hold both warmth and frustration, longing and irritation, is what keeps it alive. When you stop expecting perfection and start embracing paradox, love becomes less about avoiding discomfort and more about deepening truth. And it's in that truth, raw, imperfect, and real, that both desire and connection can finally breathe again. Ending a relationship is never just about two people parting ways. It's about the story that ends between them. The shared language, the unspoken gestures, the small rituals that once made life feel like home. But before deciding that love has run its course, it's important to ask two deeply revealing questions. Have I truly been seen for who I am? And have I truly allowed myself to be seen? Many relationships end, not because love has died, but because connection has faded under layers of misunderstanding, silence, and emotional self-protection. People stop showing each other who they really are. They start performing, being what they think the other wants, or withdrawing into roles that feel safe but lifeless. The lover becomes the caretaker. The dreamer becomes the provider. The listener becomes the invisible one. Slowly, authenticity gets replaced by adaptation. And when you no longer feel seen, you begin to feel alone even while lying next to someone. Being seen is one of the deepest human desires. It's not just about being noticed. It's about being understood, emotionally recognized, and accepted without condition. But that level of intimacy requires vulnerability. It asks you to expose parts of yourself that even you may not fully like. Your fears, insecurities, longings, contradictions. It's easy to say, my partner doesn't understand me, but harder to ask, have I truly shown them who I am? Often, we hide behind blame or distance because it feels safer than being honest. We hope the other person will just get it, without us having to say it. But emotional connection isn't built on mind reading. It's built on courageous communication. Before walking away, ask yourself, have I spoken my truth clearly, kindly, and without defense? Have I given them the chance to meet the real me, not the version edited by resentment, pride, or fear? At the same time, being seen is a two-way street. It's not only about revealing yourself, but also about offering presence, seeing your partner beyond your disappointments. Sometimes we stop noticing the person in front of us because we've already decided who they are. We label them controlling, cold, distant, dramatic. But love dies not from lack of attraction, but from lack of curiosity. To truly see someone means to look again with fresh eyes beyond your assumptions. So before ending things, pause. Ask if there's still a part of the story untold, a truth unsaid, a need unspoken, a tenderness unseen. Sometimes love doesn't need to be rebuilt from scratch. It just needs to be seen again in its imperfect humanity. And if after being fully seen and fully showing yourself, the relationship still feels complete, then you can walk away not from confusion, but from clarity. You'll leave not because you were unseen, but because you were finally honest with them and with yourself. And that in itself is a kind of love story ending with dignity, not regret. Before you decide to end your relationship, remember, endings are powerful, but they are not always solutions. The decision to leave should come from clarity, not exhaustion, from truth, not revenge. Sometimes the most courageous act is not walking away, but staying present long enough to understand what is truly ending. The relationship, or the version of yourself that once lived inside it. Love doesn't always mean staying together. Sometimes it means parting with grace, honesty, and gratitude for the growth you shared. But whatever you choose it consciously. Don't run away from pain. Walk toward understanding. Because in the end, every relationship, whether it lasts or not, teaches us how to love more deeply, both others and ourselves. Thank you for listening, for reflecting, and for having the courage to face one of life's hardest questions. Is it time to let go or time to rediscover what we've lost? Remember, clarity is an act of love. Whether you choose to stay or to leave, let that choice come from awareness, not fear. Stay gentle with yourself. Stay curious about love. And never stop learning how to meet both others and yourself with compassion. Good night and thank you.